My name is Eleanor James, and I never thought I'd live to see the day my own daughter would look me in the eye and say, "You're not invited to my wedding." Even now, saying those words out loud makes my chest tighten. I can still hear her voice, calm, cold, rehearsed, like she'd practiced that line 100 times before she finally said it. I remember standing there in her kitchen that morning, sunlight spilling across the white tiles, the smell of her coffee still in the air. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched the edge of a counter. "What do you mean, honey?" I asked, forcing a small laugh, hoping I'd misheard. But she didn't smile. Not once. She just stood there, my little girl, now a grown woman with perfect curls and a diamond on her hand, staring at me like I was a stranger. "It's just easier this way, Mom," she said. Easier. That word cut deeper than she knew. You see, I wasn't some bitter ex-wife trying to ruin her daughter's big day. I wasn't some monster who'd ever hurt her. No. I was the woman who raised her single-handedly when her father left. The woman who skipped meals so she could have shoes for school. The woman who worked double shifts just to keep her dreams alive. But at that moment, none of it mattered. To her, I was just inconvenient. She looked past me when she spoke, her voice steady. "Mom, it's complicated. You know how Dad feels. You two being in the same room, it's just not right for this occasion." And that's when I realized. It wasn't her decision. Not really. It was his. Her father, Richard James, was a charming man once. Everyone loved him, especially me, until he walked out one December morning, leaving only a note on the kitchen table and the sound of the front door closing. That was 25 years ago. I raised Samantha alone, with his ghost always lingering in the background. And now, after all these years, he'd managed to take something else from me, my place at my daughter's wedding. "If you've ever trusted someone who broke your heart," I whispered to myself later that night, staring at her childhood photos, "you'll understand what I felt that day." I drove home in silence. The world outside the car window blurred into streaks of gray and gold as the sun dipped below the hills. My hands were shaking on the wheel, not from anger, but from the emptiness that comes when you realize your child has chosen someone else's version of the truth over your own. That night, I made tea and sat by the window, watching the rain. My wedding invitation, signed, unopened, and eventually rescinded, lay on the table beside me. The clock ticked softly, filling the room like an accusation. I thought of all the nights I'd held her when she was sick, the mornings I'd brushed her hair before school, the times she'd said, "Mom, I want to be just like you when I grow up." What had I done to lose that little girl? The next morning, my neighbor Linda Carter stopped by. She's been my friend for 30 years, the kind who knows when you're hurting without you saying a word. She brought cinnamon rolls and her usual sharp honesty. She took one look at me and said, "Oh, honey, what's wrong? You look like someone drained the color out of your soul." I smiled weakly. "Sam's getting married next month." "That's wonderful," she said, clapping her hands, until she saw my face. "Wait, what happened?" "I'm not invited." The words hung in the air. Linda's eyes widened. "You're kidding." "I wish I was." She sat down beside me, her voice soft. "This has Richard's fingerprints all over it, doesn't it?" I didn't need to answer. She knew. "He's still angry that I took her with me after the divorce," I said quietly. "He told her stories, made me out to be the villain." And she believed him. Linda leaned forward. "So, what are you going to do?" I sighed. "What can I do? It's her day. If staying away keeps her happy, maybe that's what I'll do." But inside, a part of me whispered, "You deserve to be there." Weeks passed. The invitations went out. Photos surfaced online of Samantha and her fiancé, Andrew Keller, posing under cherry blossoms, smiling like a magazine cover. Every time I saw her picture, my heart twisted with pride and pain. She looked so beautiful, like the world belonged to her. And then came the real blow. Richard called me. It was a rainy Friday evening. I almost didn't pick up when I saw his name flash on the screen. But curiosity, or maybe weakness, got the better of me. "Eleanor," he said, his voice smooth, rehearsed, the same way it had sounded the day he left me. I wanted to make sure you understood Sam's decision. It's nothing personal. I laughed bitterly. Nothing personal? You're asking a mother to stay home while her only daughter gets married, and you call that nothing personal? He exhaled softly, like he was talking to a child. You and I both know it's for the best. You have a way of making things uncomfortable. That stung. I make things uncomfortable because I exist, Richard? Or because I remind you of what you did? There was silence. Then the faint sound of clinking glass, maybe his new wife in the background. I hope you can be mature about this, he finally said and hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone, my hands shaking. For years, I'd thought I'd moved on from his cruelty, but it turned out he still had the power to wound me with just a few words. The next day, I went through Samantha's old things, boxes of school drawings, report cards, old letters. One of them stopped me cold. A note she'd written when she was 10. Dear Mom, I'll never leave you, no matter what happens. You're my best friend. Tears blurred the ink as I held the letter to my chest. If only she remembered that promise. A week before the wedding, I got a message from Grace, my sister who lived 3 states away. Eleanor, she wrote, I know you said you weren't invited, but I saw your name missing from the seating list online. That can't be right, can it? I stared at her message for a long time. Grace had always been blunt, but never cruel. It's right, I typed back. Sam made her choice. She called me instantly.
No, Ellie. This isn't right.
You have to talk to her. Don't let that man erase you from her life again. Her words echoed in my mind long after the call ended. Don't let him erase you. And that's when something inside me shifted. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was pain. Or maybe it was just a mother's instinct refusing to die quietly. I decided I would go. Not to cause a scene. Not to take attention. But to witness. To be there, even if no one wanted me. I bought a simple blue dress, ironed it carefully, and packed a small gift for Samantha. A silver locket that used to be mine, engraved with the words, Forever your mother. I told myself I'd stand quietly at the back, give her a smile, and leave before anyone noticed. But life had other plans. The morning of the wedding arrived bright and cold. Birds perched on the telephone wires, the air smelling of spring and nerves. I sat in my old car outside the chapel for nearly 20 minutes, my heart pounding like a drum. I watched guests step out of shiny cars, laughter spilling from the open doors. I saw Richard, tall, confident, gray now but still carrying that same smugness that used to charm me once. His new wife, Denise, was on his arm, all diamonds and perfume. And then I saw her, Samantha, my baby. She stepped out of a white limousine, her gown shimmering in the sunlight. For a moment, I forgot everything, the anger, the hurt, and just saw my daughter. My heart swelled with pride and love. I whispered softly, You look beautiful, sweetheart. And that's when someone tapped on my car window. It was a young man in a black suit, holding a clipboard. Ma'am, are you a guest? I hesitated. I'm her mother.
His face changed.
Oh, Mrs. James. I was told you wouldn't be attending. I know, I said quietly, but I couldn't stay away. He nodded awkwardly, then leaned in. You might want to enter through the side door. It's less noticeable. My heart ached at his words. Less noticeable. Like I was something to be hidden. I took a deep breath, stepped out of the car, and walked toward the chapel. The sound of music floated through the open doors, violins, soft and sweet. Guests turned to whisper as I slipped inside. I felt every pair of eyes, every silent judgment. But I kept walking. And then, just as I found a quiet spot near the back pew, a familiar voice called out, sharp, cutting through the music. Mom. Everyone turned. Samantha stood at the front of the aisle, her face pale. What are you doing here? She asked. I froze. My throat tightened. My heart broke all over again. That moment hung in the air, fragile, breathless, unforgettable. And deep down, I knew whatever happened next would change everything between us. Because sometimes, it's not the betrayal that destroys you. It's the silence after. If you've ever been shut out by someone you love, if you've ever had to stand alone just to be near them, then you'll understand what I felt standing there. It's strange how quiet a house feels once a daughter stops calling. You can still hear the echoes, her laughter in the hallway, the creak of the door she used to slam when she was late for curfew, the sound of her favorite music drifting from her room. But now, all that's left is the silence, heavy, unforgiving silence. After that day, the day Emily told me I wasn't welcome at her wedding, something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not like glass shattering. No, it was quieter, like a teacup handle snapping in your hand, small, but enough to make you stop breathing for a moment. For weeks, I tried to convince myself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she didn't mean it. Maybe stress had gotten to her. Weddings do that, don't they? I replayed every word from that last conversation in my head. Her voice, calm but distant, saying, "Mom, I think it's better if you don't come." I had laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. But she didn't smile. "Emily," I'd said softly, "I changed your diapers, sweetheart. I taught you how to braid your hair, how to tie your shoes, and you're telling me I can't be there when you marry the man you love." She looked down. "It's complicated, Mom." That was her phrase. It's complicated. And just like that, I was erased from the guest list, from her big day, from a piece of her life that should have been ours to share. I didn't sleep much after that. Every night, I'd make tea, sit by the window, and think of her as a little girl, running barefoot in the rain, laughing so hard she'd hiccup. She used to tell me, "Mama, when I grow up, I want to get married under the big oak tree and have you walk me down the aisle if Daddy's not there." And now she didn't even want me in the same room. What could a mother possibly do wrong to deserve that? That question haunted me, until one afternoon I got a visit that changed everything. It was Sarah, my sister. She came over holding a pie, and that same face she wears when she's carrying bad news. "Don't be mad," she started. "But I think you should see this." She handed me her phone. There on the screen was a photo from social media. Emily and her fiancé, Brian, at their wedding rehearsal. They were surrounded by friends, smiling, radiant, and next to them stood a woman I didn't recognize. You know that feeling when your stomach drops, like you've just missed a step on the stairs? That's what it felt like. The woman wasn't just anyone, she was standing exactly where I should have been. In the caption it read, "Couldn't have asked for a better mother figure to guide me through this journey." Mother figure, not mother. I stared at that photo until the screen dimmed. Sarah said softly, "Her future mother-in-law has been taking your place, June." "Taking my place?" I repeated, trying to understand. Sarah sighed. "She's been telling everyone that you and Emily had a falling out, that you were difficult, that you didn't support her marriage to Brian." My hands trembled. I don't even know this woman," I whispered. "I know," Sarah said, "but she's been around a lot. Emily spends more time with her now than she ever did with you." It was as if the air had been knocked out of me. In the days that followed, I tried reaching out. I called, left messages, even sent Emily her favorite flowers. No response. Finally, after 2 weeks, she texted back, "Mom, please stop. You're making things harder. Brian's mom is helping with everything, and I don't want drama." Drama. That word stung more than any insult ever could. After all I'd done, I had become a burden. Drama. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with old photographs spread around me. Emily's first birthday, her high school graduation, the day she got accepted to college. Every milestone had my hands behind it, the cake I baked, the dress I ironed, the tears I wiped away. And now, I wasn't even allowed to watch her walk down the aisle. I whispered to myself, "I just don't understand. Baby, where did I lose you?" Sometimes, when life breaks you, it doesn't make a sound. It just quietly rearranges the pieces of your heart. 3 days later, a letter came in the mail. It was from Emily. My heart leaped. Maybe she'd changed her mind. I tore it open, hands shaking. Inside was a formal invitation, not to the wedding, but to a viewing ceremony at the church. A polite way of saying you can watch from the back, but don't approach anyone. I sat there, staring at those words. My own daughter had turned me into an observer in her life. But then I noticed something else, a handwritten note at the bottom. Please understand, Mom. It's better this way. Better for whom? Her? Brian? His mother? The note might as well have been signed by a stranger. I went to bed early that night, but couldn't sleep. The house felt colder than usual. In the dark, I kept hearing her voice from years ago. Mama, when I get married, you'll be right beside me, won't you? Tears slipped down my cheeks. Yes, sweetheart, I whispered into the dark. I will be, even if you can't see me. The next morning, I decided I needed to see her just once, even if from afar. I dressed carefully, putting on the blue shawl she had gifted me one Mother's Day, the one embroidered with tiny white daisies. I wanted her to know, somehow, that I was still there. Sarah offered to drive me, but I refused. No, I said softly. I need to do this alone. When I arrived at the church, the parking lot was full. Laughter floated through the air. Music. The scent of fresh lilies, her favorite. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my heart pounding. Through the tall glass doors, I could see her, my Emily, in a white gown, radiant, glowing. And standing beside her, helping adjust her veil, was Brian's mother. Something inside me twisted painfully. It wasn't jealousy. It was grief. Grief for the living. I turned away before they could see me. But then, a familiar voice called, June? Is that you? It was Mrs. Patterson, our old neighbor. She hurried over, eyes wide. Why are you standing out here? You're her mother. You should be inside. I smiled faintly. Apparently not today. She frowned. Nonsense. Come with me. Before I could stop her, she took my arm and started leading me toward the doors. I tried to protest, but she was already waving at the ushers. And that's when I saw it, the look on Emily's face as she turned and spotted me. Shock. Fear. Then something else, guilt. The room fell silent. Guests turned, whispering. Brian's mother froze, her hand still on Emily's shoulder. And I just stood there, in my blue shawl, clutching my purse, heart beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. For a moment, no one moved. Then Emily said, her voice trembling, Mom, you weren't supposed to be here. I wanted to disappear. But before I could say a word, Mrs. Patterson spoke up loudly. Not supposed to be here? She's your mother, dear. If anyone belongs here, it's her. A ripple went through the room. Guests began murmuring. Emily looked at Brian, who looked helplessly at his mother. And that's when Brian's mother stepped forward, smiling tightly. Well, she said, I think emotions are running high. Let's remember this is a happy day. But her tone, it wasn't kind. It was dismissive, patronizing. And for the first time in a long time, I saw through everything. Through the manipulation, the control, the lies. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Maybe this wasn't how I planned it. But maybe I was meant to be there after all. As I stood there, the music began again, awkwardly at first. Emily turned away, her eyes glistening. And as the ceremony began, I quietly stepped back, deciding I wouldn't ruin her day. But as I turned to leave, I overheard something, whispered voices between two guests near the aisle. I heard her mother was difficult. Brian's mom said she tried to control everything. Really? She doesn't look like that kind of person. That's when I realized someone had rewritten my story behind my back. I didn't know how deep it went, or what Brian's mother had told them. But that night, something changed, though I didn't know it yet. After that day at the church, the air around me changed. It wasn't just sadness anymore. It was something heavier. Something that sat in my chest like a stone I couldn't move. I went home that evening and sat by the window again, the same place I always went when I missed her. But this time I didn't cry. I just sat there staring at nothing, listening to the clock tick on the wall. Each tick felt like a reminder that time was moving, with or without me. For 2 days, no call. No message.
No apology.
Just silence. And then the letter came. It was delivered in a golden envelope, her new last name printed neatly on the return corner. Mr. and Mrs. Brian Keller. I ran my fingers over it, my heart pounding. Maybe this was it. Maybe she regretted what happened. Maybe she wanted to start over. I tore it open with shaking hands. Inside, there wasn't an apology. There wasn't even a thank you for being there. Just a short note. Mom, I wish things hadn't turned out this way, but please respect my boundaries. I need space. Brian and I agree this is best for now. Please don't contact me or come by our home. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Emily. I read those words again and again until the paper blurred with tears.
Please don't contact me.
She had chosen them. Chosen him. Chosen his mother over me. It was the kind of pain you can't scream out. The kind that stays trapped in your throat, turning into a quiet ache that never leaves. Weeks passed. Then months. I went back to gardening, cooking for one, reading old letters she'd written as a teenager. Sometimes I'd pick up the phone to call her, only to stop mid-dial. What would I even say? I miss you? Would that even matter to her now? But one morning, while watering the daisies by the porch, I saw a familiar car pull up to my house. It was Brian's mother, Linda Keller. I froze, the hose still running over my shoes. She stepped out in her pressed beige suit, holding a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. June, she said sweetly. May I come in? Everything inside me screamed no, but I nodded. I was raised to be polite, even to snakes. Inside, she looked around my living room, her gaze sharp and assessing. You have such a cozy home, she said, sitting down before I even offered. So motherly. Her tone made the words sound like an insult. I poured her tea, trying to steady my shaking hands. What brings you here, Linda? She smiled, folding her hands. I just wanted to clear the air. I know Emily's been distant. She's building her new life now, and I think it's best if we all stay in our lanes. Stay in our lanes? I repeated. Yes, she continued, almost cheerfully. She's part of the Keller family now. We don't want to confuse her loyalties, do we? The cup in my hand trembled. I don't think a daughter can be confused about her mother, I said quietly. Her smile stiffened. Oh, June, sometimes mothers hold on too tightly. I've seen it before. You need to let her grow. With us. With us? I echoed. She leaned forward. Brian and I have been helping her manage things. She's fragile, you know. Emotional. She told me how much pressure she felt from you growing up, how she could never make you proud. My breath caught. That's not true, I whispered. I was hard on her because I wanted her to be strong. Linda shrugged. She saw it differently. But don't worry, I'm helping her heal. Something in her voice made my stomach turn. It wasn't concern. It was control. She stood, smoothing her skirt. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for stepping back. It's made things so much easier for everyone. I followed her to the door, my voice shaking. You've taken everything from me, Linda. My daughter, my place, my name in her heart. Why? She turned, and for a moment, her smile dropped, replaced by something colder. Because you didn't fit, she said. Emily needed stability. You were too emotional, too attached. I gave her what she needed. Then she walked away, heels clicking against the pavement, leaving me in the doorway, hands trembling, tears blurring my vision. That was the moment I realized it hadn't been Emily who pushed me away. It was Linda, and somehow she had convinced my daughter that her own mother was the problem. The days after that felt like living in fog. I'd start doing chores and suddenly stop, forgetting what I was doing. I'd find myself talking out loud to no one, whispering to Emily like she was still little. I wasn't angry. I was broken. But then something strange happened. A letter, again, but this time not from Emily. It was from the local bank. Inside, it said there had been an attempt to access my safety deposit box by someone named Emily Keller. My heart stopped. That box held only one thing, a deed. The deed to the little lake cabin that had been in my family for generations. The same cabin I had promised Emily would be hers someday. I rushed to the bank that afternoon. The clerk confirmed it. Emily had been there, accompanied by her financial advisor. When I asked for the signature log, my blood ran cold. The signature next to hers wasn't Brian's. It was Linda's. I don't remember the drive home. All I know is I sat in my car for nearly an hour after parking, shaking, crying, whispering, "What have they done to you, my girl?" That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out every photo, every old letter, trying to find some sign of when she started slipping away from me. I realized Linda had been there in small ways for years. Gifts, visits, invitations Emily never mentioned. She had slowly replaced me without me even noticing. The next morning, I decided to visit Emily, no letters, no calls. I needed to look her in the eyes. When I arrived, Linda answered the door. Her eyes flickered with irritation.
June.
You really should have called first. I came to see my daughter, I said firmly. She sighed. She's resting. But just then, I heard Emily's voice from inside, soft and uncertain. Mom? I stepped forward, but Linda blocked me. Not now, she said, low and sharp. I pushed past her. Emily stood at the bottom of the stairs, barefoot, eyes wide. She looked thinner. Tired. Mom, she whispered. What are you doing here? I reached for her hands. I just needed to see you, baby. The bank called. Her expression changed instantly.
Fear.
Confusion. Mom, please don't start. I told you Linda's just helping us manage things. Helping, I said softly. She's taking things from us, Emily.
From you.
That cabin. Stop, she cried, tears filling her eyes. She's done more for me than you ever did. Why can't you just be happy for me? The words hit like knives. Before I could reply, Linda stepped forward, wrapping an arm around her. See what I mean, sweetheart? This is what I warned you about. She'll always make it about her. Emily looked torn, her eyes darting between us. Mom, please just go. My heart cracked in that moment. I turned to leave, my voice barely above a whisper. You'll see it one day, Emily. You'll see what she's done. That night, I collapsed onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. The wind outside howled through the trees, rattling the windows. And then a knock on the door. I froze. It was nearly midnight. When I opened the door, no one was there, only a small envelope left on the mat. Inside was a folded receipt from the bank again. But this time, it wasn't for my account. It was a transfer from my account. Thousands of dollars had been withdrawn in my name. At the bottom, a signature, June Walters. But it wasn't my handwriting. I sank to the floor, clutching the paper to my chest. She had forged my name. This wasn't just manipulation anymore.
It was theft.
And worst of all, she was using my daughter to do it. The truth hit me like a storm. Linda didn't just want Emily's love. She wanted control. Complete control. Over her, over me, over everything I had left. I sat there until dawn, the first light creeping through the curtains. The silence around me wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, waiting. And as the morning sun rose, I whispered to myself, this ends now. Because if there's one thing people forget about old women, it's that we've learned to survive storms before. And I wasn't about to let anyone rewrite my story again. But what I didn't know was that the storm had only just begun. And the next time I'd see my daughter, everything would explode. The morning after that sleepless night, I stood at my kitchen counter with a bank receipt spread before me. The paper trembled slightly from the air vent, but it looked almost alive, like it was breathing. Or maybe that was just me, barely holding it together. I stared at the signature again. June Walters. It looked almost perfect. Almost. The J curved too tightly. The tail of the S was short. Someone had studied my handwriting, copied it, practiced it. And there was only one person with access to anything close enough to mimic it, Linda. Because years ago, when Emily first met Brian, I'd written a letter to Linda thanking her for hosting me at their dinner party. She'd once said, "You have such elegant handwriting, June." I never realized she'd mean to use it. I folded the paper carefully and tucked it into a folder with the letter from Emily and the bank's notice. It was time to stop grieving. Time to start acting. That morning, I dialed the number of an old friend, Martin, who had worked at the local law office for nearly 30 years. He was retired now, but he knew every trick, every form, every signature. "June," he said, his voice raspy but warm. "I haven't heard from you in ages. What's going on?" I swallowed. "Martin, I think someone forged my signature, and I think my daughter's mother-in-law is behind it." There was a long pause. "You sure about that?" "Sure enough to lose sleep for a month," I said softly. He let out a sigh. "Bring me what you've got. I'll take a look." By noon, I was sitting in his living room, surrounded by stacks of dusty files and half-filled coffee mugs. He put on his glasses and examined the papers one by one, quiet and deliberate. Finally, he leaned back. "You're right, June. This isn't your signature. It's been traced, probably from an older document you signed. Someone skilled, but careless with pressure." There's a faint tremor line. My hands tightened in my lap. "What does that mean for me?" He looked at me over the rim of his glasses. "It means whoever did this committed fraud. You could press charges." I nodded slowly, the words echoing through me, "Press charges." But my heart wasn't thinking about justice yet. It was thinking about Emily, about what it would do to her if her mother-in-law was arrested. Would she hate me even more? Martin seemed to sense my hesitation. "You don't have to decide now," he said. "But whatever you do, do it soon. Because women like that, they don't stop at money. They take whatever power you let them." The next few days, I moved quietly, like a shadow in my own house. I went through my drawers, old documents, even my mailbox, checking for signs of more tampering. Sure enough, 2 more bank statements had gone missing. And then, as if fate wanted to test my restraint, Emily called. Her name flashed on my phone, and for a moment, I just stared at it, my heart thundering. When I answered, her voice was quiet. "Mom, can we talk?" I closed my eyes. "Of course, sweetheart. I don't want to fight anymore," she said. "I just want peace." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "So, do I." She hesitated, then added, "Linda says you've been spreading lies about her. About money, signatures, all that. I told her you'd never do something like that, but she says she has proof." "Proof," I repeated. "She said she has a copy of your withdrawal authorization, signed and dated." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Emily, listen to me carefully. Whatever she showed you, it's not real. She forged it." "Mom." "Please," I interrupted, my voice breaking. "I would never lie to you about something like this. She's manipulating you." There was silence on the other end, just breathing. Finally, Emily whispered, "I don't know who to believe anymore." That line, it broke me. Because that was the moment I realized Linda had done it. She had successfully torn the bond between mother and daughter into threads. Before hanging up, I said softly, "Then come see me yourself, sweetheart. Just you. No one else." She didn't promise. But she didn't say no either. 2 days later, she came. Alone. When I opened the door, she looked smaller than I remembered, thinner, eyes red from lack of sleep. She stepped inside quietly, as if afraid of breaking something fragile. I didn't rush to hug her. I wanted to, but I let her set the pace. She finally looked up at me. "Linda said you wanted to take her to court." I took a slow breath. "If I do, it won't be out of spite. It'll be to protect what's left of my name, and maybe to save you from her, too." She frowned. "Save me? She's been helping me." I walked over to the coffee table, picking up the folder I'd prepared. "Sit," I said gently. She hesitated, but did. I opened the folder and laid out the documents, the letters, the forged forms, even Martin's notes confirming the forgery. Her eyes darted across them, confusion deepening. "Where did you get this?" "The bank." "And Martin, remember him? He worked with us when your father passed." She looked back at me, her lips trembling. "But Linda said..." She said I'm crazy, vindictive, old, right? I smiled sadly. That's her favorite trick, make people doubt what they already know in their hearts. Emily's gaze dropped to the papers again. I don't understand." I leaned closer. "She wanted more than you think. The cabin, my savings, even you. You're her trophy, Emily. You were never a daughter-in-law to her. You were a prize. Tears welled in her eyes. No, she loves me. I reached out, touching her hand. Does love isolate you from your mother? Make you sign papers you don't understand? Tell you who to trust and who to cut off? Her silence was answer enough. That night, after she left, I sat alone at the kitchen table. My tea had gone cold, but I didn't care. I'd seen it in her eyes, that flicker of doubt, that tiny spark of truth trying to surface. I knew I had to make one final move. Something undeniable. Something public. So the next morning, I called Martin again. File it, I said simply. He didn't even ask what I meant. Consider it done. We gathered every piece of evidence. Bank records, signatures, phone records showing Linda's visits, even witness statements from the teller who remembered the woman pretending to be me. I was ready. The confrontation happened not in a courtroom, not in some cinematic showdown, but in Emily's living room. She'd invited both of us for what she called a family talk. I arrived with the folder tucked beneath my arm, my palms damp, my heart steady but heavy. Linda sat there already, perfectly poised, a calm smile on her face. Emily stood between us like a bridge made of glass. Mom, Emily began softly, I just want the truth today. No anger, no sides. Of course, Linda said sweetly, reaching to pat her shoulder. That's all I want too. I didn't answer her. I just set the folder on the coffee table and opened it. The first page, the bank notice. The second, the forgery comparison. The third, a notarized affidavit from Martin. I slid them forward. The truth, I said quietly, in black and white. Linda's smile faltered, but she kept her voice smooth. Forgery? Oh, June, really? You think I'd go to such lengths? This is pathetic. Emily picked up the paper, her hands trembling. Linda, is this true? Of course not, she said quickly, but a flicker of panic crossed her face. I met her eyes, calm, steady. Then you won't mind if we take these to the authorities tomorrow. Just to be sure. Her voice snapped. You wouldn't dare. I leaned back, folding my hands. Try me. The air went silent, heavy. Even the ticking clock on the wall seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Emily stood, her voice shaking. Linda, you told me she was lying, that she made this up. I was protecting you, Linda said sharply. From her manipulation. From my mother's manipulation? Emily's voice cracked, tears spilling. You forged her name, took her money, and made me believe she was unstable. How could you? Linda stood too, trying to reach her. Sweetheart, listen to me. Don't call me that, Emily shouted. You don't get to anymore. Linda froze. For the first time since I'd met her, she had nothing to say. I sat there quietly, tears slipping down my cheeks. Not from victory, from exhaustion. From relief. It had taken so much to get here. Emily turned to me, her voice trembling. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. I smiled through tears. You weren't meant to. That's how people like her work. They twist love into guilt. She knelt beside me, hugging me tightly for the first time in years. And in that embrace, something inside me broke and healed at the same time. Linda left that night, quietly. No apologies. No explanations. But I didn't need them anymore. When she was gone, Emily sat beside me on the couch. I don't know how to fix this, she whispered. I took her hand. We don't fix it. We start again, small steps, one truth at a time. She nodded, eyes glistening. I want that. I want you back in my life. I smiled softly. Then start by coming home for Sunday dinner. Her laugh was shaky, but real. I'd like that. That night, as I watched her leave, I felt the air shift again, lighter this time. It wasn't over, not completely. Scars don't vanish overnight. But the storm had passed. And for the first time in years, I slept without clutching an old letter to my chest. Still, deep down, I knew there was one more chapter to come. One final piece of peace waiting to be written. Don't blink now, what happened next changed everything. It's strange. how quiet the world sounds after a storm. Not the silence of emptiness, but the stillness of peace, like the air itself has exhaled. That's how it felt in the weeks that followed Linda's departure. No more phone calls, no whispers behind my back, no constant ache in my chest. Just mornings filled with sunlight spilling through the curtains, and evenings when the clock ticked without reminding me of everything I'd lost. Emily came by often now, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with nothing but her tired smile, but always with warmth. She didn't bring up the past much, and I didn't ask her to. We were both rebuilding something fragile, something made of trust and small moments. You can't rush healing. It has to grow in silence, like roots finding soil again after a drought. One Sunday, as I set the table, she arrived early. I noticed how she looked around the kitchen, as if seeing it through new eyes. "It feels smaller than I remember," she said softly. "Maybe you just grew," I replied. She laughed, that soft laugh I hadn't heard in years. "Maybe." We ate slowly that day.
No ruse.
She told me she'd spoken to Brian, that things between them were tense. He hadn't known about his mother's actions, not fully, but denial runs deep when it's your own blood. Still, he'd apologized. Not with grand gestures, but with quiet honesty, and I told her that mattered more. Because in the end, truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be heard. After lunch, Emily helped me wash the dishes. It used to be such a simple thing, yet now it felt like a sacred ritual. Water running, plates clinking, our hands moving in rhythm. She looked at me then, her voice trembling.
Mom.
I don't know if I can ever forgive myself for believing her. I set down the dish and turned to her.
Oh, sweetheart.
Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about understanding why we broke and choosing to love despite the cracks. Her eyes filled with tears. "You always make it sound so easy." I smiled faintly. "That's because I've spent a lifetime learning how to survive pain without letting it turn into bitterness." A week later, I received a letter from the bank, a final confirmation that my accounts were restored, the investigation concluded, and Linda's fraud officially recorded. It wasn't satisfaction I felt reading it, just closure. The kind that doesn't need revenge, because truth already did what punishment never could. I burned the extra copies that evening. Not out of anger, but peace. The flames flickered gently, devouring the papers one by one, and as the ashes rose, I whispered, "Let the past rest." The room filled with the scent of smoke and memories. For the first time in years, I wasn't holding on to proof anymore. I was holding on to freedom. That night, I dreamed of my husband. He was standing by the old oak tree near the cabin, smiling that same quiet smile he used to wear when I was overthinking. "You did it, June," he said. "You kept her heart safe, even when she didn't know she'd lost it." When I woke up, the sunrise had turned the window gold, and I felt lighter than I had in decades. A few days later, Emily asked me to visit her home again. "Brian wants to see you," she said. "He wants to apologize in person." I hesitated, but I agreed. Because no healing is complete without facing the people who once stood in the shadow of the wound. When I arrived, Brian looked nervous. The living room, once so cold and distant, now had pictures of Emily and me on the shelf. That small detail said everything. He stood as I entered. "Mrs. Walters," he began, his voice quiet. "I owe you more than an apology. I owe you respect, something I should have given years ago." I nodded slowly. "Respect isn't owed, Brian. It's earned, and right now you're earning it." He looked down, ashamed. I didn't know what my mother had done, but I did let her speak for me. That's on me. "Knowing that is enough," I said. "It's not about blaming. It's about learning." He exhaled. "We're moving, you know. Farther away. We need a fresh start." I smiled faintly. "Then start where forgiveness begins. Not in another town, but in your own hearts." Emily reached out and squeezed my hand. "Come visit us when we settle in?" "Only if you promise not to ban me from this one," I said, teasing lightly. She laughed through tears. "Never again." Weeks passed. The seasons began to shift, summer giving way to the early whispers of fall. The leaves outside the window turned golden, fluttering like memories ready to let go. I found myself sitting on the porch more often, tea in hand, notebook open. Writing had always been my way of understanding the chaos of life. I wrote about love, about loss, about the small betrayals that make us human, and the quiet courage it takes to forgive. And one day, without realizing it, I wrote the last sentence of my story. Sometimes, the people who break your heart are the ones who teach you how to rebuild it stronger. That line stayed with me. It wasn't bitterness. It was truth dressed in peace. One afternoon, a neighbor came by, holding a newspaper. "June, did you see this?" he asked. There it was, a small article at the bottom of the local page. Former socialite Linda Matthews under investigation for multiple forgery cases involving elderly victims. I read it once, then folded the paper neatly. "Justice doesn't always need witnesses," I said quietly. "Sometimes it just needs time." He nodded. "You're not angry?" I smiled softly.
No.
Anger would mean she still has power over me. I took that back. That evening, Emily came again, this time with a small box. "I found something that belongs to you," she said. Inside was my old locket, the one her father had given me on our 10th anniversary, the one I thought I'd lost years ago. "Linda kept it," Emily whispered. "She said you gave it to her."
I'm sorry.
I traced the edges of the gold heart, feeling the grooves under my fingertips. "It doesn't matter where it's been," I said gently. "It matters that it found its way home." She smiled through tears. "I missed you, Mom." "I miss me too," I said softly. The days rolled on. Life returned to its quiet rhythm. I started baking again, not for guests, but for myself. I tended the garden, watched the sunrise without feeling like it was mocking my loneliness. Sometimes healing isn't loud. It's the sound of a spoon stirring tea, the creak of an old chair, the soft laugh of a daughter rediscovering her mother. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, Emily said, "You know, Mom, the day of my wedding, when everyone stood up for you, I didn't understand why. I thought they were pitying you." I looked at her gently. "And now?" She smiled faintly. "Now I know they were standing for the kind of woman I hope to become one day." That single sentence undid me. I reached out, cupped her face, and whispered, "Then everything I went through was worth it." Months later, Emily called me again. "We're having a baby, Mom," she said, her voice trembling with joy. I sat down, the phone pressed to my heart. "A baby?" "Yes," she laughed, crying. "And I want you to be the first to know." Tears filled my eyes. "Then promise me one thing," I said. "Anything. When they're old enough to understand, tell them this. Family isn't defined by blood or marriage or money. It's defined by who stands beside you when everyone else walks away." She whispered, "I promise." Time has a funny way of healing what once felt permanent. The scars remain, yes, but they stop hurting. They become stories, proof that we lived, that we loved, that we endured. Sometimes, when I walk through the garden, I see the new rose bushes Emily and I planted together. The first blooms always remind me of her wedding day, not because of the pain, but because that's where our second beginning started. People often ask me how I managed to forgive everything, the lies, the betrayal, the humiliation. And I tell them this. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's choosing to stop carrying poison in your soul. It's not saying what you did was right. It's saying, you no longer have the power to hurt me. I spent too many years letting pain write my story. Now I let peace hold the pen. Tonight, as I sit by the window, I can see the reflection of that same cabin in the distance, the one that once felt like a tomb of memories. Now, it's just a home again. The lamp glows softly beside me. My hands, once shaky from anger, now steady as I write these final words in my journal. I've learned that sometimes life breaks us apart just to rebuild us into who we were always meant to be. That love, even when betrayed, still finds a way to return home. And that even the loneliest hearts can bloom again, if they dare to forgive. I close the notebook, exhale deeply, and whisper to the quiet night. I was never meant to be the victim of this story. I was meant to be its survivor.